actually, last month, 40 years in journalism.
40 years, all right. Great. All right, and then Mike's going to be interviewing some people, and we're really thrilled that in addition to Lewis coming out, a bunch of the other people from Hopeless are here as well. And they really made this extra special. They made it work for us. They made it easy on us. They brought in that exhibit just for you guys. So we have a couple of them with us, sir. Executive Vice President Ian Harrison. Let's hear it for Ian. We're going around numbers. 20 years at Hopeless. That's pretty fun. And another executive vice president there is from Hopeless Records that's joining us today, Eric Tobin. Let's hear it for Eric. We should be giving out gold pins or something. Another 20-year person. You know, and it's interesting, I think, and for everybody, hopefully you can work in things that you really love. And if you ask any of us how long have we been doing this, you have to stop and think, because you think it was maybe only 10 years or 15 years, but 20 years. And to do that, it means that sort of every day is a work day and every day is a weekend. And you guys were, you're fortunate to continue doing what you're doing. Then we're going to bring up from the artist side, and it's writer, producer, performer with the Illuminati Hotties, Sarah Tudzin. Sarah.
She's so cute.
And I should have said it, killer guitar player too. Yeah, that was a great set. Let's hear it for that set one more time. Okay, and then we have another performer that's with us to help round out the stage and to give us insight as a Hopeless recording artist. And I loved what I heard this person say from the stage, that they've been with other labels, but that Hopeless is really the one that has meant the most to them. And of course, that is frontman and soloist with Waterparks. It's none other than Awsten Knight.
Shake his hand. Look at the diploma. Oh my god. The professional.
And we're going to shift the spotlight from me to this incredible group. So thanks everybody for being here. Almost don't need the mic.
So, why don't we get some essentials out of the way? First of all, thank you, Lewis Posen from Hopeless, and Al, and Ian, and Eric, and everybody that's worked at Hopeless. Hopeless was, and still is, in my heart, one of our best partners that we ever had at AP from way back. And I just know that our journeys together were very similar, and I hope that our new journeys, especially on my side of things, will continue to flourish, and we get to do a lot of great things together. So, Hopeless Records, everybody. These guys are great. Okay, so why don't we talk about the beginnings? Because when I started AP, I was 19. I lived in Aurora. I graduated from Aurora High School in 1984. And I started AP, and our first staff meetings were at the grog shop. So if you go in the grog shop and you're getting your ticket, you look up, there's a little plaque I made for Kathy there. And because I used to be Arabica's coffee shop, and we used to meet in the back. So right now I started a new indie book company. I got out of AP at the end of 2020, and it's called Ruffian Books, and we have a new book called 500 Essential Pop Punk Records. So go to our website, check it out. But one of the things I like about going back to my roots and doing DIY publishing, which is where Hopeless started from all of the influence of the old fanzines from the 70s and 80s, was that it really did start as a DIY company. It wasn't invested in, it wasn't started by venture capitalists and stuff like that. So I don't know which one, Eric or Ian, which one you want to tell like the basic foundations for Hopeless Records, so we can kind of lay the groundwork.
Ian, you spent so much time building this thing. Tell the story.
But you could tell it.
I think that, obviously for Ian and I, we've been here for 20 years. So we weren't here in the beginning. Lewis was here in the beginning, or so he says. I can't be proven. But Lewis told the story earlier from stage. He started with $1,000 and a book called How to Run a Record Label. He had a band called Guttermouth that was looking for someone to put out a record in between. And I think they saw Lewis, who was at that time making music videos, seemed like the guy that could do it. So he got the book, and he started putting it together. And I wasn't there for all the beginning of that, but it's obviously how I have my job now because of a bookstore and a book and Lewis's $1,000. And I got started to put it out while still making videos. And I know some of you who heard him from stage today, he's gradually lost his eyesight, and which, I think in a blessed way was a way that said that, hey, I'm going to go be this business person and put this together and change the world in that way. So there wasn't a big giant label there as far as I understand the story, at one point I think we had anywhere between 9 and too many distributors that Lewis was putting CDs and vinyl in the back of his car and driving into distros so they could get into record shops, because there was a time where major companies or major stores like Best Buy and Transworld and the major labels said, nah, you're not getting inside here. And it was a real struggle. It was an everyday thing. And talking to bands was still letters and pre-email in some cases. And so, like you said, Mike, the beginning of this was one day at a time. And, as I understand, we used to have the story, or I still hear it sometimes, that when we first got a water cooler in the office, it was a big, big moment. Mustard Plug, a ska band, which I don't know if you know what ska is. If you do, good for you. I'll skank in the pick with you later. But the Mustard Plug record did so well at the time that we were able to buy a water cooler, and it was the first time that employees had fresh water. They were just drinking out of a pipe in the back. Yeah, it was crazy. I saw the pictures. It's awful. Everyone, it's brutal. I'm joking. You should have saw it. It was terrible. It was just a puddle outside. It was so DIY. And that's where we got to today. So I'm going to pass it in so my bad jokes don't continue.
Wait, did you say you wrote bands letters to get in touch with them?
Lewis writes letters to a lot of bands.
We found, as we were putting together this exhibit,
Bands can't read? What are you doing?
the whole first maybe 15 years of the label was written on paper, which is crazy. So from...
you know what paper is? Is that what is this sort of paper?
Is that like iPad?
Yeah, it's like an iPad you can only do a few things with. And every little...
Hold an iPad.
Yeah. Every little thing, art notes, the tiniest tweaks. I couldn't imagine working on your project over letters sent in the mail.
Mad as hell.
That entire era of the label was very documented with little notes and a lot of tedious correspondence, but it was very fun to go through as we put together this thing.
So, one more label question before we kind of move down to Sarah and down to Austin. When everything became free, okay, how do you remember how the label started to, especially with Napster and all that, how the label started to adapt what you had to start doing as a label in order to be able to basically keep the doors open because everything went out the door?
Yeah, well, the story of Hopeless has been adapting from the very beginning. So when something like that happened, it wasn't really anything that new. The literal origin of the label is adapting. Lewis losing his eyesight, pivoting into this entirely new experience, launching this brand. We've been adapting from day one. It took probably 10 to 15 years for anyone to really even call us back or take us seriously, inch by inch. So we've been adapting from the get-go. So when something like that happened, when iTunes comes along or Spotify comes along and changes the game, that's always been very good for us and our artists because it's offered new opportunities. In general, indies were closed out of those things historically, and as those changes came along, some people ran and hid, some people complained about it, and we decided that this was an opportunity for us. We could get more stuff for our artists, we can get more coverage. There was a time where if you weren't on a major label, you were kind of locked out of being in stores, you weren't in magazines, you weren't really anywhere. And that's not the case today, and that hasn't been the case for a while. And there really wouldn't be, I think, artists like Waterparks and like Hotties right now who can do what they want to do, reach an audience as big as they can reach, regardless of what kind of company they're on. And that comes from that adapting. So we've never really looked at something like an iTunes coming along. Who cares? This will all change too. Spotify's going to go away at some point. TikTok will turn into some other thing. It's always changing, but what hasn't changed is this right here. I mean, we've been doing this, Tobin and I have been doing this for quite a while, and the artists have changed and the fans have changed, kind of, but not really. This seems like 20 years ago. You know, it's the same connection, it's the same meaning, it's the same relationship between artists and fans, the art that they create, what that means to all of us in our community. That hasn't changed at all. So that little specific of like iTunes, we don't even care about that. That's not even really something we think about.
So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, I think for such a long time, too, to Ian's point, like, the industry had a feeling that they could control where customers or fans went. The difference for us, like what Ian just mentioned, is that in 2005, when we started, there were all of you there. And everything that Hopeless has always done has been about you and what you're interested in and what you love and what you're excited about. Like, we've always said, like, the genre of Hopeless is a kid. It's not a sound. Like, all of us who got into this were looking for friends. And I think in high school there was very few available to myself, and then I met kids that listen to music, and the first kid I said, what are you listening to? And he said, you wouldn't know it. And I said, oh, FOMO, that's so cool. But I mean, I think that idea for all of us is like, I think when people talk about adapting to the idea of Spotify or Apple or whatever the future is that we've been focused on meaning something to someone and not selling singles to someone on a radio station. And that's great. I mean, obviously we have to sell music in order for Ian and I to have these fancy clothes like this. And see how good we look today?
Great idea.
Yeah, these are, boy, 17 weeks of work for these shoes. So, no, but I think that the important part of that adaptability thing is that we've always worked for fans, and we're working with artists who care about the fans and that approach. And if there's fans there, they're interested, they're involved, they're part of it, and that means that people are buying in the way they need to that supports who they are and what that conversation is, because these artists are, in a sense, that's the cultural currency that we put out there. And I think the change can happen constantly, but we weren't relying on, number one hits because the fans make this always a number one hit. And I think that's how adaptability becomes easy for companies, or especially for Hopeless, if that makes any sense.
So I was going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask one more here. Sorry, I'll get you. Because you just sparked my message. Eric or Ian, modern world, TikTok stars. You've all been in that world. No names.
We know some.
No names. I wasn't even looking at you when I said it. So, but there is this kind of concept today where it's like, why do I need a label? I've got X, millions of TikTok followers, so forth, so on. But so if you're sitting down with an artist today, give that pitch. Like, where does that role of the label, especially an indie label like you guys, like, where does that? What can you provide to them that they're not thinking of?
I mean, one of the things we'd say to that question is you might not need a label, and you might not need us. I mean, I think there's maybe 35 artists on Hopeless now. Right now, that we've worked with about 120 or so over the course of the 30 years. That's not that many. There's way more artists that aren't on Hopeless that are amazing than aren't. It's so it's. Say the question again.
Why should somebody who's got a huge following, social media following, especially make their own money, why should they go to a label?
Some of them shouldn't. Some of them can have their own career, doing what they want to do, reaching the people they want to reach. Like, the idea of reaching someone, like, you don't need us to reach the fans necessarily. But artists do tend to need teams of people to help them accomplish bigger goals. And as those goals get bigger and loftier and more complicated, the more of a team you tend to need. If you don't need that team, that's great, and that's more for you. But I've noticed, you'd probably say the same, like, in working with our artists, especially the ones on stage here, like, I feel like the projects have gotten so much better because a team was involved and got to bring that vision to life. Hopeless isn't the kind of label that dictates this vision. Nothing you've seen from Sarah, from Awsten comes from us, in terms of this is why this is green or something like that.
You said, sing Dream Boy or I'll kill you.
I remember saying that. Yeah. Not on paper.
Okay.
Aside from that, sometimes we say that. But we're really here to make those dreams bigger and better. And so if that's not your path, and if you're accomplishing it some other way, then that's totally fine. And we don't want to be working with artists that don't need us. We should be their friends, but they don't need to be on the label. So for us, it's really about finding a good fit and something that'll make things better for everyone. We're here to serve artists. We're here to tell their stories and make their stories bigger. If that's not the role we can play, then we shouldn't be involved.
Sarah, with all the DIY in your back, I got to you. With all the background, all the DIY in your background, you're a Grammy winner.
Ooh.
Wow.
Just immediately throwing me under the bus.
Sorry, I took your credit out. Well, a three-time nominee too, right?
Yes, yeah, I was lucky enough to work on a record that got a lot of Grammy attention this year, last year, this year, kind of.
Boy Genius.
Name drop.
The boys, Boy Genius.
And you went to Berkeley School?
I did, yeah.
And is that where you worked with one of Prince's producers?
Yeah, so Susan Rogers was a longtime professor there. After she had worked with Prince, she kind of like quit doing production and engineering and got a degree in music cognition. She like got her GED, immediately went to get like a doctorate, and then was teaching at Berkeley. And I learned so much from her, just of how to like think and behave in a studio space, and also how to think about music in a way that affects people from their guts instead of like from their brains. There's so much great music that is like logical and complicated, and for her, I feel like making a great record was all about like, you know, everything below the chest, like what makes you go, ah, yeah, you know, which is awesome.
So doing all that work on the engineering side, because you started you started initially as a drummer.
I did.
You were a drummer.
Yeah.
So, and actually, I read, I don't know if it was a Rolling Stone piece, or it's one of the pieces where you actually used to play in Boston in a Irish band.
Yeah, I was like trying to pay rent, and I'm not Irish at all, but like there is like I know I was a poser, so I was like you know, trying to figure out some random gigs, and there was this Irish band that was like getting paid to play in bars and play at colleges and stuff, and I was like, whoa, like, you mean I can get a couple dollars from this?
Yeah.
Like, let's go, you know?
Cover bands are good money.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah.
steady money.
It's steady money. It was
I'm
cool.
shocked there's Irish bands in Boston. That's so weird.
Unbelievable.
We were talking earlier. We wondered if you were any of the nights you played, if there were fights that started in the audience. You started.
I started them, yeah. I was like, I could pour a draft of Guinness better than you can. And no. Well, probably. I don't know.
Probably.
I was safe. I was towards the back corner of the stage.
Okay, so with all that experience and that knowledge, and you know, going to school, learning engineering and producing, how do you think that made you approach writing music, creating music differently versus maybe an artist who has none of that experience?
I actually feel like I've learned more from the reverse relationship. Like, you know, like writing, luckily I feel like comes quite naturally to me. I feel like you could relate to this. It just is something that is like within you, and like it was easy to sort of like foster that and like nurture that piece of my artistry. And I really learn more when I'm producing other artists, like how to deal with an artist type of person, you know what I mean? Like, you can go in and like hit all the buttons that make the thing sound huge, whatever, like, but what really matters is like, is the artist feeling good? Are they happy? Are they performing at a comfortable ability for them? And like, I've really learned so much more from like the reverse of that relationship. Like, producing other artists doesn't really, if it does affect my writing, I guess, because I'm like just hearing so much more music, but I really learn more from like being an artist and like seeing how I can foster that relationship when I'm in the producer chair and somebody's coming in with like all of this information and like beautiful art that they're like maybe nervous about showing to other people.
Every artist should have their homework done before they walk into the studio. They stop wasting the time, and the you know, the clock stops ticking.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the clock is ticking in a lot of ways. I guess like budget and whatever,
Yep.
but like as a producer, I don't want it to feel like that. You know, I want them to feel like they have all the time in the world to be themselves.
So, Awsten. So, I brought this up before. There's a Crank story a couple of years back, 4 or 5 years back, and you were quoted saying that every year you should put out new music.
Yeah.
So, for the record, for the Rock Hall, because we're filming this, why don't you tell the story between your last full length and now, and what's been going on?
Oh man.
A lot.
I feel like when someone asks me like, "What'd you do today?" I'm like, "Oh, so much shit." And you're like, "What was the last year and a half like?" No, it was good. I feel like we're lucky because somehow every album has, grown a little bit more and more. The tours have all grown more and more. And I think that every album has kind of put us in a new position, like a slightly higher thing than we were before. And so it was cool getting to do the rollout and trying to like beat everything we've done before. The tours, like the stage production and everything, like trying to actually turn it into a show where we're, talking with our like lighting guy Andrew, who's incredible. And we're like, how do we make this feel even kind of like a play a little bit? We had like set changes and like a B stage for the first time, and I know it was fucking so nerve wracking because like I even started putting on these big headphones as noise blockers because the delay from the stage was so nuts that I'd be hearing the click track in my ear and then I'd be hearing the drums and it's like, it was horrifying. You guys don't know that, but
Scary, yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, we put out intellectual property, started putting out the sequel album to it, pulled that for a bunch of reasons, but now it's interesting because we haven't been an independent band in like 10 years or something, and so right now we're in a cool position where we're kind of just putting out a bunch of stuff when we want to as it goes. Like there have been a couple things where it's like 2 days in advance we're like, we should just fucking drop that. and I don't know if it's necessarily a forever position, but I think that right now, after being on so many labels for so many years, that I think it's just a fun kind of breather while we sort of regroup and figure out what's next. But it's cool because, the vault is so, it's so huge. Like there's just so much stuff sitting on hard drives where I'm like, this is going to die here if I don't put this out soon. Like, and don't laugh. So yeah, it's an interesting and cool position to kind of not be on the clock, but still putting out things so much faster than if we were.
Music history is littered with vaults full of scrapped
A lot of
records. And so what's going to ultimately happen with that scrap material?
Most of it's going to die with me.
Leak it.
Yeah,
Leak it.
I do sometimes.
Can't confirm.
Like
Like
actually,
today. Yeah.
so occasionally I listen back on a bunch of demos and just things. I kind of listen through. I'm like, dog shit, cool. You suck. That has potential. Like I like that bridge. Whatever. Like one of the songs that I played today was just a demo that I've been sitting on for like 4 years or something. Probably. I mean, we're gonna put it out. Like, I'm gonna go home and recut the vocals because I'm fucking better at it now. But like, but no, it's cool. So I think some of it will see the light of day. I've given pieces of songs or like demos or whatever, instrumentals to friends if I don't think I'm gonna use it. Yeah, I mean, it's a case by case thing. Like, there's no world where I just leak everything because I'm like, man, they're gonna think I fucking suck, But but some of it will come out.
That was another topic, self-doubt, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if
Self what?
So Sarah, this is you're like 4 albums in, right, with your band? Am I correct?
This is the 4th one, yeah.
Yeah. So it just came out yesterday.
Yeah.
It's called Power. And then this is for both of you, but also I got a question from a label perspective with this. So the question I have for you is, how do you think that you've grown as a musician? Your life has changed over the past years. You've gone through, some heartbreak. You also some really happy things have happened to you. And so, how has that kind of like morphed into this record particularly?
Yeah, I think this record was like the rawest and the realest that I've ever been, and I've always been able to hide in the noise of punk and like the sort of genres that I love to play music in. And this one, I sort of, without even, I tried to write everything else. I tried to write so many characters. I tried to write just pretend like I was writing for Rihanna, pretend like I was writing for Sum 41, like whatever. It takes the pressure off. And I tried to do everything else, and like without without trying, or with actually actively trying not to, what ended up coming out was, I think, my inner landscape in like a way that I've never really experienced it. And so I was trying to make space for that to like make sense sonically too, because it's so easy for me to get on stage and smack the guitar and be like, la, la, you know, like whatever. But that wasn't this record, and there's just so much more to say lyrically, and so much sort of like walls I ended up having to like make a little easier to see over.
That's awesome. I wish you the best of luck with this record. This is great.
We'll see.
Say the name of the album again.
The Power. Or no,
It's
Power.
It's called Power, yeah.
No, the
Yes.
Power. So, Eric and Ian, so I can't believe it. 2004 was 20 years ago. That's crazy. So, how have you found... I know. So,
I was so sad.
yeah, I know.
That
So-
would hurt personally.
Sorry. So, how has the way, what you look for in an artist changed in order to sign them to a label since 20 years ago to now?
Not much. I gotta be completely clear. I mean, it's the same as before, talking about like when we say that our genre is you know, that it's, I think that what's important is to find artists that are passionate, and, you know, I think what Sarah was just saying, and being close with her, it's, as things are happening in your life, we need to talk about what those are, because I think that what we're trying to find is an artist who can put, how do I put this in a great way? Like, I think when we're growing up and we're figuring things out, we have a lot of emotions and feelings. I'm sure all of you have heard about feelings. They're tons of fun. And I think that we're looking for words to express those, and I think that we look to music and art, especially music, to say, there's a lyric that explains the feeling I'm feeling. I didn't know those were the words, and then Sarah said it, or Awsten said it, right? And I think that what we're looking for in an artist is someone who can create the inner monologue for someone who's searching. I don't think that changes, ever. It just never does. And I think there's got to be other pieces, a willingness to work every single day, to go live on a van or a bandwagon, which is brutal, or a bus if you can afford it, and can get on stage every night and redo this. And it's sort of, if you're an actor, you get to act a part. If you're a painter, you get to stand behind the painting. When you're a musician, you get to express your deepest, darkest fears in life and all of it every single fucking night. And I think we're looking for people who are willing to do that, and then go out there and make that happen, and then have a stage show and have a point of view and be a little crazy and want to have insane ideas. And like, that's what we need, because I'm not, people always ask, well, did you listen to the songs? Like, I do, I love the songs. It's super important that obviously the music comes in, and that's, we're a music company, it's so important, but the story is so important. The idea that we're going to put around it, because again, we're out here, we need a place for you to go and feel safe and have a good time and feel like this was the best part of your life, and you met your best friends, and when you're 50, you're calling, remember I went to see Illuminati Hotties in Austin, and there was those two label guys that were total suits and hated it? Oh, that was a good time. You know, I think that what we're looking for is that. I mean, I don't think it ever changes. I mean, there's lots of different pieces. There was a time where I said, look at the amount of pure volume numbers they have, and if you know what that is...
No one even laughed at that. They don't
They
even
don't
know.
even know. That's how sad that was.
I smiled.
I mean, I think like the tools will change, but I think the idea that it's someone who can change somebody's life and then go out and make that happen every day on the road is so incredibly important to what we do, and that has not changed in the time I've been here, or even the time when I was on the road before that. That's the difference maker.
Just say, yeah, it's all about connection. The conversations we have today about artists who might join the label are the same as we did 20 years ago.
So, for both of you, what was there ever anything you put out yet, or anything artistic? Because you're artists, but you also have feelings, no matter what you kind of paint on social media. Was there anything that
Wow.
I said paint.
You have feelings, you robots.
So, I prefaced it that you have
Stop saying
feelings.
I have feelings.
Is there anything that you've released artistically that ended up being not received the way you had hoped?
I'll go first if you want.
I feel like it happens all the time, right?
Yeah, well,
Like-
because when I'm making a demo, when I'm like sitting at my desk, I'm like, oh fuck, I picture this being played in this kind of venue. Oh my god, I see it doing this. Oh my god, this might be like one of our like top things. Whatever. And so I don't even mean for this to be like sad or whatever, but I get really sad like every release day,
It's horrible.
Yeah, well,
It's
because
horrifying.
and it's not. It's
yeah,
kinda,
we feel that way too.
It's not even like I'm disappointed in like reception or anything. It's not that. It's just that the potential that you see in your head or like the vision or whatever, it like plays differently than how like when you were, I don't know, because when you have a demo and you're like holding on to something, it's kind of like the possibilities are endless and you're like, oh my God, the potential is so fucking exciting. And I'm like making fake track lists. I'm like every bit of sessions, I make like new album art for them. You know what I mean? Just because I'm like, and I'm like, dang, some of these like flow into each other. That's kind of tight, whatever. And then it's time to put one of them out. And you do, and you're kind of like, fuck. Like, even if it's received well and everyone's like, this is the fucking coolest, it's still like, I don't know.
Well, I think, like, Tobin and I were kind of talking about this. Like, when a song comes out, often, you know, we've been working on it for, like, months, years, like, a long amount of time where we're pouring our hearts into it, and then it just is like, it's out. And it's like, you know, it's not like the Bugatti pulls up and everybody, like, pops champagne in your face or something. Like, you're just like, okay, like, now it's on the internet, and I don't know how to, like, perceive good, bad. Like, you don't really know until you get to do this with people and, like, see how they're, like, absorbing it firsthand or, like, see how they're reacting to it when you play it live. But I do feel like release day and, like, putting stuff out, there's always a shift in perception, and that's just the case with art, is it's like it will mean something different to us than it ends up meaning to like the court of public opinion.
Right.
You know?
Another thing I think is interesting on that end is, and it sucks, like, you know, we only have so much to base success off of. That's why things like this, like you said, are important. Things like shows are important, like feeling the actual connection. But putting things out today is so much just bullshit social media numbers and Spotify numbers and all this stuff. And sometimes it feels like, I don't know, maybe this is too much, but I feel like sometimes, you know, we'll announce like, gonna drop this music video, whatever. And like on Instagram, it'll be like, ooh, you know, 50,000 likes, that's fucking cool. And then you put it out and it's like, 20,000. You're like, did those other 30 not like it? You know, it's like crazy shit. Like, it means fucking nothing. Like, Mark Zuckerberg's bitch, and he's like, fuck you on. And, like, fuck you on. But I'm saying, like, true. Like, but I know that those things aren't real. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, most of those people probably just saw it and clicked the fucking link. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like looking at myself, I'm like, stop being crazy, man.
But you were one of the, you were literally, I always used to say this when you guys first came around, and you started immediately with all caps.
I emailed you so much.
I probably did.
Bad demos.
It's okay. So, we love all music.
You shouldn't.
I'll be able to put that on a box set and make a mint on it sometimes. Yeah. What was my question? Oh,
I don't know.
Here, what's been an IMDb moment right now, trivia moment. What's been the longest amount of time has passed between when you initially wrote a song to when it was finally released?
There's two that come to mind. One of them is on Fandom. It's called Never Bloom Again.
Yeah.
That one I started writing at the end of 2016. Like November, I think. And we went through multiple full albums before, like, and I was always tweaking it and kind of fucking with it. And by the time Fandom was being made, I was like, oh, wait a minute. And I kind of like cracked a few like chord progressions and melodies, and I was like, it's ready. Oh, man. You know what I mean? So there's that, because that was, I don't know, 16, math. And another one was this one called Real Super Dark. On intellectual property. I had that instrumental, like the guitar and the beat and everything, for maybe since end of 2019.
Oh my
and that
God.
album came out was it May or April?
April
2023.
23rd. April 23rd.
April 23rd, thank you. Yeah, fact check me. But
my
the
God.
thing is, I kept writing lyrics or vocals or patterns or whatever, and and I would record them, and I'd be like, these aren't as cool as this instrumental. And so I would start over again and over again and over again. And finally with the one on the album, I was like, this is the fucking coolest song in the world. And it's, for the record, it's a crime that it's not in every single movie trailer ever. It should be in every horror movie trailer.
Execs in the house?
Yeah, where the fuck are you? This is the Rock Hall. Someone here can do something about this. I'm done talking. You go.
What was it? What are we talking about? Oh man. I don't know. Probably long ass time. I don't know.
We'll put that in IMDb then. Okay.
Yeah,
Long
you
ass
know.
time. Okay, I love it.
I mean, like you said, there's like songs that like I've put out as hotties that I wrote 2 weeks, before, and I was just like, it has to come out right now, and like whatever, like let's just get it into the thing and let it do its thing. And there's songs that like, yeah, just kind of like live and like do their thing, and you're like, it doesn't really go on this record, but there's something where you're like, you keep opening up the session. So I'm sure there's some shit like that, but I don't know.
So you brought up fandom. So a question on that is, you were saying like it comes out and then you start freaking out if the response isn't like that, right?
Yeah.
We live in an immediate response society. So was there what on that record maybe a year after where you kind of went like, I would have redone that, what's your feelings on that record now?
I don't think I'd redo anything. Period. Like, I think there are things I would change on the albums before that, or like just things where like if I happen to hear it back or like a clip of it like on TikTok or whatever, like from an old thing, I'm like, damn, I would demolish that song now. But like fandom, I don't know. I just feel like the energy that was captured in that album and those performances and like all the cool production, I think it's all aged really well. So I actually feel good about it. Like there's other like if you ask me about older things, I'd be like, I don't know, fuck that one, and whatever. But no, I feel pretty good about everything on there.
Phantom is one of the most important records that we've ever put out.
Yeah. What's your favorite song? He's like, oh shit.
Dream Boy should have been bigger.
Yeah. Honestly, I think the entire front half of that album, I'm like, yeah, that one, that should have been bigger.
We had a lot of single arguments. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not us, but internally.
Right.
So going back to what you were kind of started talking about, Eric, a while back, what are some things that could sabotage an album's release? Like the artist puts all this time and effort, no matter what they. Not everything's about you.
So this feels like a trick question. There's so many things. Austin, mostly though. If you're working on his record, he'll come in and sabotage other releases.
Go to the vinyl
Where
plant.
were you for Power yesterday?
Just fucking around. I was on a plane all day yesterday.
That's why we put him on a plane, exactly. It's an interesting question. I think because I think that everything we put out, every artist we've had has worked hard on it. We've worked hard on it. I think maybe an artist not showing up at that point, or like changing their mind, or like maybe not wanting to. Like we've set out a plan. We've seen this a lot of times happen. Like we've got a great plan, and there becomes a second guessing moment. And there is a time period where you've set a release. The release is coming, and the second guessing period has to end. And I think in some cases, if you can't second guess, you become disappointed that your idea that you're now having should be better, and you can no longer do it. And I think with so much of this is why when Ian was just mentioning single conversations, we at the label have discussions all the time. Like, that's the one, we got to go. And the artist goes, nope, hate it, I want to go something else. And we immediately go, great, let's go your way. Not because I want the artist to win. I always want the artist to lose. I'm sorry, that was a random conversation. Joking. I'm joking. It was more of we want the artist to be excited about the process. We want the artist to pick something that they're like, I believe in this, I love this, I want to go with it. We want to encourage that because it's about the creative that you're coming up with. I think the problem comes in when it's the second guessing sometimes starts. I haven't had a lot of cases of this, but I think in the general sense of like, oh no, I don't know what to do anymore. And if you're losing steam on your own creative project, you stop showing up for things, which I think is totally human. Like, hey, you've got 6 interviews. I don't even know what I want to talk about. You start canceling or something like this. And I'm not speaking of anyone specific at our label, but in my course of, as you mentioned, 20 years over and over, you did. You hurt my feelings. That's where a thing can become sabotage, because I've stopped believing, and you sort of have to, and I bet you would agree, like, you have to say, this is my narrative, this is what I'm doing, I've created the theater, I've created the stage, and now it's time to go get on stage and make the play happen. And if you decide to switch the lyrics or the words at the last minute, you're in trouble.
So, I'm going to read you something from about I think this is 1999. Maybe I'm a little bit off.
Okay.
So this was from the Stranger, and this is the headline. It says, "Punk rockers act. Who say punk rockers don't care?" The Take Action Tour, sponsored by the newly launched Sub-City Records, an offshoot of the punk rock label Hopeless Records, will kick off in San Francisco. The tour benefits 3 national organizations: Lifebeat, which used to be a music industry HIV/AIDS resource and awareness organization dedicated to preventing HIV transmission amongst teens, the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, and the National Coalition for the Homeless. And this tour was really the launch of so much beauty, to the point where they've raised $3.2 million since then for charity. Can you talk a little bit about like where this all started, but like what's happened since, and what are you doing now?
Sure. So, Sub-City was the origin of Hopeless's nonprofit efforts. Charity work, nonprofit giving is a big part of the culture at Hopeless Records, and the big reason for that is we realize that this is a community that's much larger than us. Like, we don't exist here on our own without all of you, without everyone else. So having a charity component to the label has been very important from pretty much the very beginning. Around 1999 is when Hopeless started picking up some steam. The bands were gaining some traction, getting a bigger audience. And one of the thoughts internally at the label at the time was, how can we help use this voice for good? You know, how can we get some more out of this into the world that's not negative, put some positivity out there? So Sub-City was launched then as a bit of a sister label to Hopeless. And at the time, the structure was, if you were on Sub-City, a portion of the record sales would go to benefit a charity that you chose. We didn't choose it. Hopeless didn't dictate this. It was something that the artist felt passionate about. And we would put materials inside the CDs and the vinyl about the charity so people could learn some stuff and get involved. And that sort of grew and grew. Thrice was one of the first large artists on Sub-City that put out some very meaningful records. And over time, that's morphed into different projects. Take Action Tour is what you mentioned. Now Sub-City is actually part of the Hopeless Foundation, which is a new thing that we launched quite recently, to start all sorts of new projects. So Sub-City sits inside of that, Take Action sits inside of that. Sub-City Studios, which we just launched in a sort of a disadvantaged youth drop-in center near the office, where people can play music, learn about the music industry, have an on-ramp into getting into what we do. That's something we're supporting now through the Hopeless Foundation. So all of that exists now because of that moment in 1999 with Sub-City and the Take Action Tour, which we ran that Take Action Tour for 15 years, I believe. All over the nation. We took it to Australia one time. Raised on its own probably $2 million, I would think, for charity. And the best part about that tour was you did good just by going. So if you bought a ticket, a portion of that ticket went to benefit the charity that was a part of the tour that year. So just by showing up and participating, you were doing some good. And that, spiraled and grew in a good way, spiraled and grew. And we haven't done the Take Action Tour in a little while, but we might again at some point. But the idea that we want to connect good causes, positive action to art, we're all about that. And we're looking for opportunities to do that across the board. And that's something we're an opportunity to offer artists pretty much in anything they do. It's always available to them.
So how can fans support the two of you the best financially? So I got a quick poll here. How many of you find your music on YouTube? Just raise your hand. How many of you find it like on Spotify?
Yeah, where else? It'd be good for us to know.
Yeah, how many of you find it on iTunes, Apple? So really Spotify. Wow. Okay, so how can fans make sure that you're getting the most money if they want to like buy something from you? Do they just is it the old school way
Write
going
down
to the
your
merch
credit
booth?
card numbers.
Don't
My
lie.
Venmo at Illuminati Hotties.
Cut the label out of it.
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, going to the tours, buying merch.
I have a whole list here.
Do you?
I really
Break
do.
it out. Actually, while we're independent, we're like, dude, fuck it. I was talking to Zach. Where's Zach? There he is. And we, like, with a few of the songs that we're putting out, we're like, why don't we just put them on, like, fucking Bandcamp? Like, we're local. We dropped the shit. Yeah. So we did that. And that was cool. So there is that. Yeah, I mean,
Repost stuff, create using the sounds that like we've created for repeatable use. Fucking call college radio stations and public radio stations and request plays. Come to shows. Tell your friends. I don't like make playlists with the music. Like wear T-shirts, buy T-shirts. Like I think mainly the goal is get the word out, right? Like you telling your friend I love water parks goes so much further than fucking
10
whatever.
Twitter ads.
Yeah, Twitter ads saying we love water parks.
Yeah.
It really does go a long way, I think.
I think, yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, that and going to the tours, like, that's the move.
So,
I'd agree with that. Like for what Eric and I do, we bring people to the shows all the time, and it's one of the main things that we use to convince people to support the artists is that experience, and you guys are a part of that too. Like that's not something that just happens with you guys. This is a community effort, and it is very important in terms of breaking artists to be able to bring someone to a show and say, look at this. I couldn't write enough emails. I couldn't say enough words that could describe how great an artist is doing or what they mean. That compares to just bringing someone to a show and saying, look at this.
so all these years now for Hopeless, so you see self-help people or you go to therapists and they say, envision yourself, figure out your goals for the next 5 or 10 years. And the way everything runs so fast today, it's like I think 5 is now 3. So I'm just going to go down the line. And where do you see, and maybe Ian or Eric, you can do both together. Where do you see the label? Where do you think the label wants to be in 3 years?
Geez, we're already working on 3 years. Those are
I just did
people
my
working
plan
on
for
right
27.
now, yeah.
I'm a little nervous about this.
Yeah, I mean, bigger and better. Hopeless is striving to mean something big to the alternative community in as holistic of a sense as that is possible, in as wide of a way as possible, so that this idea of the future of alternative, the future of pop punk, emo, whatever you want to call it, we don't even like using those terms anymore because it feels limiting for the type of art our artists are creating. But we want to be the biggest tent available for that idea, the biggest home for unique artists who are doing something totally different, but the common thread they share is that they're doing something interesting and that there's a team like us to help support that. So I think the goal is 3 years more of that and bigger and better.
I agree. I really do.
Sarah, where do you see yourself in 3 years? Where do you want to be?
Did you say beach? Beach. Double the venue sizes. Double the studio square footage that I use. Platinum record.
First off, I'm going to own Hopeless Records now. I want us to be playing in arenas. I have so many production ideas, and I'm just like, it doesn't fit in these rooms yet. Yeah, I mean, a platinum record, that would be very sick. I have a full list of things. I got my bucket list. I make sure to write the goals down because people have told me before. Yeah, people have told me before, they're like, oh, I don't know if you're going to ever be satisfied. I'm like, that's not true. I have tangibles. I have action items. Yeah, I mean, I think it would be cool to, I know it's not the most important thing by any means anymore, but it'd be cool to have, like, a normie radio song. You know what I
Oh
mean?
my god, yeah.
Yeah. that'd
You
be
know what I
sick.
need? I need like a song that's like Smash Mouth All Star, where like I can start the set with it and then I play it again.
Yes.
In the middle of the set
And no one's mad.
Yeah,
Everyone's
exactly.
like, fuck yeah. Actually,
fuck with that.
like, y'all would be mad, but then there'd be like a shitload of locals like over there that are like,
I'm back.
yeah, so I'd say like a song for like the soccer moms. We need like a Flow Rider bridge. Platinum record, maybe 3. I want to buy a fucking house so I can get a drum kit because Otto doesn't let me touch his drums. Yeah, fuck that guy. I want action figures of us made. Yeah.
Cute.
She said, "Take my money."
It'd be sick. I bought some Outcast ones at the store down there. Or over there. I don't know where it is. You want me to keep going? I can just keep going.
Well, I was going to ask. So we're going to do audience questions because I know you probably all have a ton. And so, but I did want to ask one question. It's kind of non-musicy because one of the things I learned with AP is I became a workaholic, and I had no work-life balance. I just worked all the time. And so now I'm in my life where I'm like catching up. So for all 4 of you, we'll just go down the line. Where has been a place that you went to that just you would recommend to anybody here when they get money, they want to go on vacation? Where would you say go there because that is your place of like peace or zen or of inspiration as an artist or wherever?
Oh, okay. For me, it would be Big Sur, California. My wife and I like to go up there all the time. It's a great place to get away.
If they don't know what Big Sur is,
Oh yeah, they probably do know.
It's a huge guy.
Yeah.
Ohio.
It's just down the road.
So
Where are we today? It's a little bit. It's around San Francisco in California. It's a really nice, rugged beach, foresty area.
See those shoes?
It's outdoorsy. Yeah.
guy climbs.
He's a climber.
Yeah. I mean, Japan is fucking sick.
It's a great spot.
I really want to go back there. We were supposed to like 4 different times. And this thing happened. I don't know if you guys heard about it, but like everything got canceled for like years. But I want to go back there. Australia's tight. Don't let anyone tell you different. I've always wanted to check out Cleveland. It's exotic. I've never been to Hawaii. I really want to go.
Yeah.
Like the.
Literally one of the only songs I would like mix from our discography. Shut up. You sound like.
The questions are going to be great.
God. I'm crying.
I spent a little time in Portugal and I loved it. Loved it.
Lisbon?
Lisbon and Porto, and there's a surf town a little bit like west and north of Lisbon, and like it's hella cheap once you get there, which is great, and the food is amazing and the people are amazing.
Portugal always gets forgotten.
It should not be forgotten.
They have port there.
Port,
Yes.
it's true.
Uh-huh.
It's good.
It's pretty tasty.
I'll show you a picture later of me
I
tasting.
can't wait to see it.
It's embarrassing.
I don't know where to go. Anywhere that's I can, even though it looks funny because I'm about to say that I like walking places and it looks like I walk like shit, which is true. I walk very terribly.
But you go everywhere.
I try. Yeah.
He goes.
I do. I try to go
He goes
places.
everywhere.
Guy climbed a mountain.
Yeah.
Did.
I went to
done-
Chile.
I did Machu Picchu, I did the Andes, I did Everest.
Damn.
So I've done a few,
Climbing
but I
Everest.
really do want to go to Antarctica.
You couldn't do that?
I would die instantly.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
100%.
I didn't.
That's great.
I know. Oh.
You didn't brag much?
Oh, sorry that I lived.
Would have been a way better story if you.
Told it much better too if I was dead.
So we've got 2 mics, boom and boom. And so what we'll do is just raise your hand, and then we'll kind of go down the list. I'll try and get people from everywhere, okay? So why don't we go, we'll go start right down here in the front left there. Yes. Yeah. Hold on, she's got a mic. Because this is all being recorded, so they got to get the audio.
All right. Sorry. I'm nervous.
You should be. No, totally.
You all day. Sorry. I wanted to talk to you all day.
What's up, dude?
I wanted to ask if you could revisit any feeling from like any album or EP you've made. Which one would it be?
Like the feeling while writing it?
Yeah.
Ooh, it'd have to be like one of these, like something like it maybe. You know what I mean? Because it's not one where I was like, I'm not like, oh, I'm so sad while I'm writing this one, or like, fuck, I want to kill myself. Like, you know, it's not like that. But it was just one where I was just like in like mega fuck you mode, like kind of like punk mode. You know what I mean? And every time I get back there, I wind up doing some crazy shit that's fun for people. So, yeah, maybe like it. Yeah.
That's a good question. That's a good question. All right, why don't we go over here? Third row, right there. Yes, you. Yeah, you. Sorry.
So I just wanted to know, like, from a working perspective, how do you guys, like, avoid burning yourselves out? Because I know, like, I burn myself out a lot with my job. So how do you guys prevent burnout? Or when you guys do get burnout, how do you guys get yourself out of that rut or get yourself out of that hole to get back to working and creating again?
Great question.
I have a really dark version answer to this. I'm so burned out, I'm just at a new normal.
Amen.
It's great. This is what burned out looks like. Isn't it fantastic?
A shell of what he once
Yes.
was.
I think you just grind yourself into such dust that you reform as a new character. And then
Rise
that
from
new
the ashes.
character has a version of the you that used to be. And people say, what were you like when you were young? And you look at them with glassy eyes.
Looks just like Tobin.
Yeah.
Something's changed.
Something is different.
His eyes are different.
Yeah. It's actually nothing inside me. I'm a wind-up toy. I think the way to avoid burnout is, I think there's such a cultural discussion about this all the time, and I think that I may have a different perspective. I think that this is one of the reasons I love working in Hopeless is that I'm disabled, and working with Lewis for all these years has been really nice in that way because we can kind of have this conversation. Not to say it's exclusive to being disabled, but I think that you gotta try a little bit harder because I've had to prove a lot of things to people because it's not that people need me to prove it. I feel so deeply that I need to prove it to other people so that I feel good enough. And I think the burnout comes in that way of like, oh man, I just need a break and all these things. Like, I love what I do. I like this. And there are days that are absolute pains in the ass because I'm a human being and I'm from New England, so I like venting and complaining and gossiping and everything else. And I think I've decided that this is my life and that's part of it, right? And I think that burnout sometimes to me, and I know this is just a point of view, is that I've decided I don't like something and I don't want to deal with it, right? Like it's that thing, like I'm in this spot, like, oh, I hate everything, but I'm not going to make any changes, right? And I think that I like who I am, I like what I do, and there are some days where I am incredibly exhausted and I'm working hard, like I said, to prove things to myself, but I don't tend to burn out because I'm looking forward to the next day and I'm not spending a lot of time wondering why I did that thing yesterday. It's already done. I can't go back. I can only go forward. And I think that I avoid burnout by being excited about what's coming, not about how terrible it all is. That's the point of view, I think, that comes from this stupid cane. Yeah.
I'm not gonna follow that.
Well, I don't know if anybody's gonna answer this, but what about social media burnout? Like, where you just kind of like you don't want to post anymore. You're over it.
Never happened. No, so I mean to address that and yours, I definitely get burned out. But the thing is, it feels like it's a double-edged sword. But I've got like just the craziest ADHD. I've got the it's so goddamn bad. But the thing is, if I stop working on something, my brain turns on me, and that's even worse than the burnout. Yeah. So then honestly, I feel like that mixed with the ADHD is like, it's what helps me get so many things done. You know what I mean? Because I can be working on a song, and then I'm like, oh, fuck that. And then I go work on some clothes, and then I'm like, oh, wait, but I could go like write this thing, or like, oh, wait a minute, I remember I was like working on whatever, I don't want to, whatever, some projects. And I'm like, I can go like do this now. You know what I mean? So I've always got like 5 things that I'm bouncing between and like sticky notes above my desk where I'm like, I could do that one now. If I start feeling like, because I never want to force myself to be like, I'm like, just fucking finish the bridge. Who cares? You know, like I never want it to be like that. But I think what I do, and these aren't the best answers, but I think I just keep going. and then I crash out every like 6 months, and then I do nothing for like a week and a half maybe, like tops, and then I'm like, all right, it's time. Or I start like itching again. I'm like, but I'm having ideas. So I mean, I think if you're dealing with like burnout or even something lighter like writer's block, do as much as, or as counterintuitive as it may feel, just going on a walk or a hike or like trying to do something you can't think during, like boxing or hot yoga or tennis or whatever, like some kind of activity like that where you need to be like on. Like those are some of the only things that I can do where like I'm not thinking about like a flyer or like a font or something. You know what I mean? I need to be like full on distracted, and then afterwards I'm exhausted and I'm like, okay, wait a minute, I have a fucking idea, and then I can like get back on it. That's kind of how it works for me. I just keep going, do things to like help in the meantime, eventually crash, start again.
Just out of curiosity, since we live in a world now, especially with Gen Z, and I think it definitely started with millennials, but Gen Z have embraced it fully, where we use social media, especially TikTok, and even with lives, where we talk out our problems, and we're getting instant feedback back. So there's a real good love machine going on there, back and forth with people with like self-help and suggestions and advice. Is there any advice that either one of you two have gotten from social media where it actually helped you?
I would say the best advice I got was do it in a way that feels fun to you, because if it doesn't feel fun and you're doing something fake, instantly you will all sniff it out. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel good. It's not fun to watch somebody do...
Unless the person sucks who's doing it and you're watching them, and you're like, you're dog shit at this, dude.
But then is it even like if they're not having fun, we're not having fun, you know?
Who is them, though, in this scenario?
If the audience is, if me watching a TikTok of someone and going like, oh God, like I'm cringing because I can tell that they're also cringing, you know?
You've seen the guy from Trapped going live on TikTok?
Oh, yeah,
he's just mad as hell because everyone's like, play headstrong. He's like, I already did.
Yeah,
he's not having fun, but he's on there like every day.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think that was the best advice though, is just like make it cool for yourself, and I think people will recognize authenticity.
And what's fucked up is everything on TikTok, it's like there is like a pressure to do it, but I found that the less hard I try, the better it goes. Like, no, seriously, like if I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, wait, I kind of want to put together like a little edit or, and throw it on TikTok. Flop. If I get on there and I'm like, and there's just like a little thing of text, like,
it's crazy.
It's infuriating.
It's awesome.
It's good.
Yeah.
Somewhere up here. Why don't we go right there with the blue, the shirt right there. Yeah, you. Sorry, you. Right there. Well, you got your hand up.
The twin.
The twin. Sorry.
Hi.
Hey.
Hey.
What? What do you want, dude?
Okay, dang. So, Ray already kind of like asked this question, but I kind of want to, branch off of it because I'm a songwriter myself. I make music. I'm independent. But I kind of wanted to ask from your perspective, maybe like you two, since, you're musicians full-time.
Yeah, Eric, be quiet. I don't mean that. I felt bad making that joke.
I'm just gonna stick with him.
See you in the locker room.
Say your thing.
Oh my god!
I'm fucking with you. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, whenever you find yourself in writer's block, and you kind of already talked about this, but whenever you're in writer's block, because I was in writer's block with songwriting for like 6 months, and then all of a sudden I was sitting in my bedroom one night. It was actually after I saw you on tour for Singing Out of Heaven. I suddenly was like, oh, I want to write this and this and this and this, and I am terrified of that ever happening again, where I just like have no clue what to write, and everything I do write just seems like wrong. So, or like, people aren't going to like this. So I was just wondering, how do you kind of, go forward with trying to avoid writer's block, or like when you do have it, like if you just like have any advice on what to do to like kind of, give myself inspiration. You know what I mean?
I think you have to accept that it's gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like, you can't like fear you can't be like, oh, I'm so afraid of hitting writers. Because it's going to happen. You just have to kind of accept it and know that, you're going to snap out of it. There's going to be something that you see on a TV show or hear in another song. It can be really anything, like something like a scene in a movie, like the way something looks or the score, something that'll just like click for you. And you'll be like, oh shit, I have an idea. You know what I mean? It always happens. But I mean, as much as you can, like I said before, distract yourself with something. Go do something like physically demanding. That always helps in some kind of way. I also, one thing that I do is I kind of try and like Pavlov myself into having good ideas. I bring these like red and yellow Twizzlers like every time I'm gonna write. I break them out. What do you want? And when I have those, I used to do the same thing with like a certain candle. I would light it when I was like working on stuff, and basically kind of like try and trick my brain, be like, wait, that taste means I'm having an idea, or that smell means I'm having an idea.
That's so real.
Yeah, so something like that as well could be good. Picking like a ritual.
I like that.
Idiots.
You say here.
Just scream it as loud as you
Oh my god.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. Mostly for the artists, I'm wondering, is there any idea of a balance of putting out enough new music to keep people interested without maybe overdoing? Like, I like Waterparks, and I'd love a new Waterparks album. But if you put out like 3 albums next month, maybe it'd be
I
like,
want to hear that shit.
it'd be like, it would be like maybe less special.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if there's any, I say fear seems like an overly strong word, but yeah, kind of. If there's a sort of a balance of new stuff to keep it going, but maybe not.
Well, it changes all the time, for sure. Like, I think that the way everything is consumed now, it begs for more output all the time from the creators. Part of me is the way I approach the way I approach music is I'm putting records on the shelf, and so like I'm trying to make as much as possible. And the artists that have long careers and the artists that I admire deeply have dozens, hundreds of records in the world, or records that they're sitting on and they're creating all the time. And then, there's just sort of like a marketing element that we, I guess, work with these guys to figure out, like,
Always pushing.
as far as like a slow your roll moment. But like, yeah, I mean, like, to me it's just about filling the shelf, so I'm making as much as possible, and like, I'd like to think that there's somewhere for that to go. It might not be all at the same time, but luckily I think people do want to hear it in some form, even if it's just like, these demos are on Bandcamp for one day, and that could be as fun of a release.
Good idea.
Yeah. Let's go. You heard it here.
I feel like I'm always wanting to put things out, and we always will be an album band because I just love the world building side of it so much. But there's also part of me that, like when we put out Greatest Hits, the album is 17 tracks, and so naturally, some people aren't going to hear all of it. And that bummed me out so bad because some of my favorite songs ever are like in the back half of that album. And so then part of me was like, okay, I want everyone to hear everything we do. I feel like maybe the albums will be like a little bit shorter just because I don't want it to be like because even bands that I like, if I see they put out like a 20-song album, I'm like, that's daunting. Like I still hear it, but yeah, I'm like, fuck y'all, track 18, I'm like, ah!
We're not trying to read Dune every day.
Yeah. And I'm like, now I'm just not so much in a hurry to put out a full album because, for that reason, and I like letting songs have their time in the sun. That's why with like Intellectual Property, it was 11 songs, we had 5 of them out, like, for a second before actually doing the album because I was like, Funeral Grace so goddamn good, run it. And then I was like, Self-Sabotage Jams, run it, let it sit. And then I'm like, fuck about it. Like, that needs its 2 months to, like, live. You know what I mean? So, as much as I want to just be like, hey, look, do you like this? Hey, look, do you like this? Next day, do you like this? What about this one? Like, I feel like it kind of does everything else you're releasing kind of a disservice to give people too much at once. And, I don't know, and it's also weird because that's just talking about, putting out songs directly to, like, you guys specifically, but then because of how the internet and TikTok and blah, 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 everything is right now, things retroactively get bigger so often, and anything can trigger it. Like, it can be a TikTok thing, or it can be, like, a sync. Like, we had a song on the hit album Fandom, called Telephone that got on a show called Heartstopper. And that made the song bigger than, like, almost every single. You know what I mean? And that was, like, years later. So, I don't know. It's all pretty unpredictable. You kind of just have to feel it out as you go. And, I mean, and also occasionally give yourself a little treat and be like, I'm gonna fucking leak it. So, yeah.
I think just from a label standpoint on that too, like for us with the artists, it's often some artists are going a little slower. It's like, hey, you got to put out music soon so we can help promote because that's how the label does it. And then there's some artists who are, I want to drop things every 3 weeks, and I have to explain that might be good, but we need a little bit of space to. There still is some traditional elements of this business too, where we have to go tell press and we have to go tell someone who programs digital, and they're adults or people like us that are, only can do so many things and have to impress a boss somewhere. And so to what Awsten mentioned, we do see albums that are 18, 20 songs, and they, even beyond that, I'm like, there's a point where you, the human being, are like, man, I can't remember all these songs, and I want to know them all, and then someday you got to come back and play that album live because it's everybody's favorite record, and you have to relearn 21 songs. That's too much. It's crazy.
There was a piece in just today, actually, about the Harris campaign. And the reason why they're keeping her speeches to 20 minutes is because of the fact that attention spans are short. And so they feel like going for hour-long meetings, people are just going to zone out, especially if they're trying to watch movies. So with that in mind, what do you think is like the longest an artist today should go before, like, without releasing a full length?
You want what we've been told by our partners, or you want my feeling?
Your feelings and your partner, because it's like radio's got a different vibe, and
they all do. And I think from the standpoint of, like, and I think if we're all artists or even the label, like, you're looking at the algorithm from everybody raise their hands at Spotify. We're all looking at the algorithm at Spotify, and the general consensus is, well, every 6 to 8 weeks you should put stuff out to feed the algorithm. And I think that is some weird nightmarish future talk. And I think it depends on the fan, it depends on the project, right? Because I think that when we're putting out singles, we're leading to something, and people are excited and they're catching up and we're seeing that move, we may want to hold for a minute. There may be a song we want to stick with. We could see a song want to get some excitement, but we need something else to keep things going. Like, we're constantly talking about attention spans. In order to keep attention spans wrapped, to build more interested people to hear the lyrics we feel so important about, we may need to do 8 singles in a year with no album at all. Like, I think there was a lot of years where, okay, album's the format. I don't know that there's any format rules anymore. There is putting out art and being creative, and people are excited and paying attention and being a part of it, and so we have to listen and be a part of that. The downside of this is, and Sarah sort of mentioned this, is for the creators. We're putting a lot of downward pressure to be like, look, we better have a bunch of songs available, because if you show me one and we're so excited to put out and there's nothing else, we're in a tough spot. And I think that's nobody's fault. That's just the way that the delivery system works, and then you guys get excited and you want more, and if there's nothing more, we end up with 6 months of nothing, and then you're upset. And that's troubling. It's hard to turn upset back into excited. Get out of here.
Just out of curiosity, because the overwhelming majority of the legacy artists that are in this museum didn't have social media to deal with. And they started their careers, and they got out on the road, they toured, they did press, they got a hold of their manager through payphones, so forth, so on. Do you think either one of you two could survive in the music industry without social media?
Like, back then or today?
No, today. If you had no social media. Like, if social media just was turned off.
It just depends. Like, I don't know, like, if you have a team behind you who's building you up to be like one of these mysterious motherfuckers like Frank Ocean, like, dude can dip, and it's
Yeah.
fine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's us. You know what I mean? Like, I think if I bounced for 4 years, like, I don't think it would be the same. You know what I mean?
You think it would hurt your career?
Probably.
Yeah.
Right?
Because it's so much of it is based upon being in contact with your fan base.
Yeah, I mean, like, I post on TikTok and the streams go up, and I'm like, oh. I don't post on TikTok, they kind of stagnate. I'm like, better post on TikTok, huh? You know what I mean? Like, kind of see the fucking chart, and you're like, well, that's undeniable.
I will say too, I think if you're looking at our roster and in general, if we're talking earlier about the start of Hopeless, power structures that existed previously before social media and Spotify, it was, you want to put out music? Good luck. You better figure out who you're going to have to do what with, to, and how. You know, because I think that those structures said, here's how you get there. And I think it's I'm just saying, I mean, like, we just, there's a space now where everybody can kind of find their favorite artists, and I think a lot of those artists had to be a part of those power structures and show up on things that, and if you pissed somebody off politically, your career may be over. I think that getting to a fan relied on traditional media roles with people that paid for that and all that, and trucks that had to deliver shiny things and vinyl things to stores. We had to drive there and you had to have money for the gas and all those things. I mean, we're in a space where everybody can thrive and grow, and I think if you turn off that social media, a lot of these amazing pieces of art that exist may not exist at all.
It's democratized creativity to some degree, and all of it. It's brought a bunch of bad shit with it too. But a lot of your favorite artists wouldn't exist without it because they wouldn't have been able to reach an audience. Some kind of power broker of the time wouldn't have thought it was a good idea. They would have said no. Both of your projects at the beginning, I'm sure, like someone would have said, I don't know about that, you know. And it's like the better your project would have been in the end, the more likely someone would have said no at the beginning because it's not traditional. It's not something that's guaranteed to work. And so, from our perspective, social and just digital everything opening up has taken away those barriers, and it's gotten closer to sort of an ideal where good creative can shine, and then we can support that.
So we probably got time for about 2 or 3 questions. Depends how quick they are. So let's try and keep them. Why don't we go over here?
True or false?
On the end, right there on the end. In the green. You. Yep.
So if you had to describe your style of music or your, style of music or band to somebody who hasn't heard it, like how would I tell my mom who Waterparks is? How do I explain it to like my grandma?
I was gonna say, like, I feel like labels at this point are just for labels to know which category to put it in at the CD store, which is a place you go buy CDs. But I think what you would do is you'd be like, Mom, who's your favorite band? And she'd be like, Eric Clapton. And you'd be like, there's this band that sounds like Eric Clapton. You should check it out. Or you know what? Like, honestly, for like older people, just call it rock. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, 'cause first off, who cares? And second, like, lying for sport's awesome. And like, I mean, it's really just, I mean, I would just say like alternative because that kind of leaves it pretty open-ended. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have any like weird preconceived ideas where you're like that's why, like, the thing is, I'm not like, I don't fight it so much anymore just because I've seen people refer to like the genre labels. Like if someone's like pop punk, I'm like, fuck me. But when I saw like The Killers or like Fall Out Boy or whatever like, get labeled with that, I was just kind of like, oh, that's just like a thing they say. But like the reason I don't like it is because there's just like so much, like 99% is just such dog shit, and it's also not what we do, and like there's just a million things. But so anyway, that's my genre rant. But just say rock or alternative. It's easiest. You know.
Yeah, I love gaslighting your parents into thinking that Waterparks is Eric
Van
Clapton.
Halen.
I love this approach.
Sounds like Prince.
Yeah. What is your favorite band?
On the red on the corner here.
Hey. So, how do you separate your feelings about something you're making from like what you think other people are gonna think of them? Because I've written so many songs that I loved until I showed them to people, and then I started overthinking and second guessing, and it's so hard for me to like show people my music now. And I was wondering how you guys can like get past that.
Two things. One is your execution of your song serving the intent of your song? If the answer is yes, then it will be a great song. And it doesn't matter what your friends think, because there'll be people who will love it if that's the case. The other thing is, if you believe in your songs and you're like, this is the fucking best shit, if you don't like it, fuck off.
I mean, yeah, like, honestly, though, agree with all of that. And then I kind of find that showing friends something earlier on, sometimes I'll be sitting there and I'm like, this is the fucking best. And I play for someone, I'm like, I could make that better. Oh, like, it helps. It's almost like an editing process where you can, like, you hear all the blemishes when somebody else finally does.
So true.
Yeah,
There's validity in hearing it through someone else's ears for the first time, but knowing that maybe that doesn't mean abandon ship, right?
Right, exactly. It's kind of just like, it's, you know, if you find yourself explaining like, well, I was gonna like recut that verse. It's like, maybe I don't fucking recut the verse. You know what I mean? It's like use it as an identifier rather than like, you know, take it so to heart that the project itself is fucked.
I'd also add that all of the artists on Hopeless who have had meaningful careers have had plenty of people who say, I don't like this, and I hate this, and fuck this, and all that. It's, from our perspective, often a sign that something's going right, because it means you're standing for something, you're being authentic to yourself, and that's just not going to connect with everybody. So if you're kind of connecting with everybody and everyone's saying, hey, this is great, they're not really telling you the truth. They're just saying some platitudes. So expect some amount of detraction from your art. And if you're not getting that, you're probably not making authentic enough art.
Jason, can we do one more?
Yeah, one more.
One more. Okay.
Two more?
Two more.
The artist is a control. Okay, one of the ones in the middle here, right there with you. Oh, you were holding her arm out. Okay, go for it. All right, we'll go for it. There was a team effort.
Okay, this is for Awsten. Oh, wow, that's really close. Okay. So you just released Greatest Hits 2024. Thank you. So do you have any plans for like a fandom version of it?
What's cool is that's probably one of the only ones we could do where it would actually come out on the label, and I'd be stoked about it. So I think there just hasn't been a need for it yet, because normally when I've made these, it's like 8-minute things where just like put together all of the, like one album, you know what I mean? Like all, that way we can do like 9 songs in it or something. But it's usually when there's a tour coming and I'm like, man, making the set list is like impossible feeling. And I think we play enough, for my thought process, at least on like the past few, is we still play enough fandom stuff to where we don't need it to be recapped in like an 8-minute thing. You know what I mean? Because, I mean, and maybe we get to the point where that we have so many albums that it's just too hard to pick, and we'll narrow fandom down into like a 9-minute thing. But we just haven't had that need yet. You know what I mean? It's kind of like I wanted Greatest Hits to have its flowers on this last run. And so the best way to do that was to make the 2024 thing, you know?
It's like last week on Waterparks.
Yes, exactly. You're getting the up-to-date shit right now.
All right, last question. I'm sorry if I don't call. I wish I could call on everybody right now. Why don't we go down here? You right there. Yes, you. Yeah, right there.
So this is mostly specifically for Awsten. Why'd you call me Lil Bruh earlier on?
That's a stupid question. Next.
Like, in general, like, what compels, like, any of you to, like, respond to people certain ways? And do you, like, ever regret how you respond to people?
I do all the time. I constantly feel regret.
It depends on my mood. It depends on the vibe and the energy and my mood. So if I call you like egghead, I'm like cranky. And if I'm like, what's up, little man? Like, I'm in a good mood.
You called me daddy wrong legs. Yo, what the fuck was that?
I would be proud if someone called me that.
That needs to go on the wall. That's a good name.
You're doing it. Keep doing that.
I'm professional.
It's your digital footprint.
So that's gonna be the question. But I need to say this. When I started AP back in '85, we were a little fancy, a little punk fancy, and hand out for free here in Cleveland, and we didn't have support from any of the major institutions in town, and for all of our kind of crazy misfit bands that we were covering, and the fact that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum supports young artists and in subgenres that still a lot of mainstream press kind of just don't really pay a lot of attention to, just says everything. So to Greg Harris and Jason Hanley and everybody here at the Rock, thank you very much. Thank you to Lewis, Tobin, and everybody at Hopeless for this wonderful event. Thank you, Awsten. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Ian. So we're gonna all exit out, and then once they're all out, then everybody else can go out. So how's that sound? Okay. So
Lewis.
Thanks, Lewis.
Bye.
I'm starting Hopeless.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, bye, bye.